Sagittarius, a wonderful good morning to you. Welcome to my channel. Sagittarius, this is your oracle reading for shadow work. We are going to do a deep dive today yet again. The last reading I think was very telling, and it was one of my favorite readings actually that I've done recently. So let's see what is happening for you now, Sagittarius. And as always, let's not forget that we are responsible for our choices and actions. This is just inspiration. This is just, shall we say, shadow work for the sake of discovering what energies are at work right now and what blockages there are and what we could possibly do to lead things into a better direction. Okay, so Sagittarius, as always, I'm using my dark mirror oracle cards. They're fantastic for shadow work, and as always I also use one card that shows a scene from a legend or a fairy tale. And this here right now is from the fairy tale Der Rattenfänger von Hameln, which is literally translated the rat catcher of Hameln, Hameln being a town in Germany. And you see what is happening here is that he's playing on a flute, and all the children, so in the story, all the rats are following him, and he's leading them out of the town, which is a good thing, of course. Here you see another scene where he plays on his flute and all the children are following him. Now this is interesting, right? I love how detailed the painting is, by the way. So these cards are from real paintings. So this painting is by James Elder Christie, 1847 till 1914, and the picture itself is from 1881, and it's in the National Galleries of Scotland in Edinburgh, the original. And I have this copy here, right? And we'll talk about this towards the end. Okay, let's have a look, Sagittarius, how it all starts for you. Okay, your first card, Sagittarius. Black flower fragrance. Let's see how it says this. Now this is an interesting title for a card, and the card is quite mysterious as well. It's one of my favorites. You see how there's a strong wind blowing through her hair, and she's holding this flower, this rose that is, it seems as if it's almost like a black gem, like a black obsidian or something, exploding, and all the shards flying everywhere, but it's really the petals that are flying everywhere. And it's very dark, very passionate, the card. And what it means is really that we feel things within ourselves that we are not quite sure, we're not quite sure what to make of. Not all of our emotions and our thoughts are pretty, and sometimes that can clash with the image that we have of ourselves, or what we think we should be like. Yes, sometimes we can love the wrong person and know it's the wrong person. Sometimes we can feel anger that we feel we shouldn't have. Sometimes we can feel envy. But it's very, very important, Sagittarius, that we don't hate ourselves for that, but that we use this as a chance for growth, for having a good think about what we really want to be like instead. Okay? And not to make this a destructive process but a constructive one, because even though it's dark, the rose that she holds, or the flower she holds, still has a gorgeous perfume. So our feelings are still our feelings, and we have shall we say, a value just because we are ourselves. Of course, we constantly should seek out self-growth and becoming a better person. That goes without saying. But you see, this is shadow work. And so those parts of ourselves that we may recently have encountered, Sagittarius, I mean, it's so hard. It's so hard to look at oneself and realize, this is me. I have these feelings and these thoughts inside me. And then not to hate oneself, but to say, okay, maybe I can make something good out of this. Maybe I can turn this into something positive. So this is a chance, Sagittarius. Yeah, don't beat yourself up. Things can be hard, and so to have feelings and thoughts that are not necessarily super innocent or virtuous, I think it's human nature, and that's precisely what this is about. To look into that part of ourselves that we may not always want to see, but then we can draw from that the right conclusions with regard to how we want to be, and we can walk into that direction. Okay, it's a bit vague, that opening. I'm not apologizing for this, because this is how the messages came through, and we see if it becomes a little bit more clear. So let's have a look at the second card. Okay, so now things are becoming a little bit more clear already. This card is called Downcast Pride. So there's something very meek, very defeated about this card, but it's not so much the defeat after a battle, after having tried really, really hard and not having succeeded. But this is downcast pride. This is about having in the past acted in a way that makes us feel undignified, or where we feel maybe a little bit ashamed of ourselves. This could be anything really, and I leave it up to you, Sagittarius, to answer this question, because I can't possibly know, but this is what this is. You see how this lovely creature here, this elf or fairy, whatever it is looking down. The eyes are going down. The head is bent forwards, as if in defeat, but it's the same posture that we have in defeat and in shame. Isn't that interesting? And so that means perhaps the way our life is right now is something that we don't really associate with who we really are as a person. Maybe we're forced to live a life right now that is not according to our true nature, and it's frustrating us, and there is embarrassment in it in a way, even though we know we can't help it. If we couldn't help it, so that could be health related, for instance, that could be due to outer circumstances. So it can be very, very hard for our pride and for our confidence if we're forced in a situation to be to kind of appear smaller than we are, to not be able to spread our wings so much as we maybe were used to. And as I said already, that could be health related, that could be physical, okay, but it could also be, if it's mental or emotional, psychological, this could be that we are experiencing a feeling of shame because we were in an undignified situation for way too long, and now we feel perhaps that perhaps we now think, how could I have allowed this to go on for so long? Why did I do this? Why did I not set an end to this earlier? Right? And the answer is, Sagittarius, and please don't beat yourself up, we always just do our best at any given point in time. So that means for whatever reason or reasons, you maybe were not able to act differently, and so now maybe it feels like a tremendous waste of time. All the time that you allowed a person or different people perhaps to treat you badly, and it just wasn't fair, and you knew at the time that it was fair, but for some reason you didn't have the inner strength to say no. Well, the thing is, you can do this now. It's never too late for that. And so if it's that feeling, Sagittarius, that feeling of shame and embarrassment of not having acted a certain way in a certain situation, whatever this may be, let it go and forgive yourself. Let it go and forgive yourself. This is so sad. There's such a feeling of regret I'm getting. But Sagittarius, no, please let it go and move forward. and move forward, because you see there's an element of growth here in both cards, and that should be encouraging and give us hope. Right, you see here the flower she carries, and here you can see she's wearing this wreath with of branches and leaves, and the roots are going deeply down into her. This is actually quite interesting because this is a golden wreath, so this is like a wreath of victory, and yet she's bowing her head. There is no need for that, Sagittarius. Stand with your head held high, okay? And the victory that is already yours, that maybe you first have to properly internalize, the roots of that victory go very, very deep. Can you see this? The roots going down deeply into her chest. And while this maybe looks a bit strange, what it really means is, Sagittarius, that no matter what your situation is right now, the roots of growth in your life right now that lead to the golden victory in the situation are taking their strength from your very essence. That's the water that they're sucking up so that they can grow. It's your own essence. So that's pretty much it, and this is why I also have nothing to feel bad about, because maybe you haven't even recognized your full potential yet. Maybe you focus too much on what you should have done and didn't. Don't. There's a blossoming flower right there with sweet fragrance. There's a wind blowing, and it's carrying the leaves with it, so that the growth is everywhere here. The roots, the wreath on her hair, everything is growth. You see? Because plants and flowers grow, that's why. And yes, and this is about refocusing and forgiving yourself. Okay, now the last one. How interesting. Okay, gosh. So this one here, look at the Sagittarius. This is fascinating. This card is called Artificial Heart. And I think this is quite a unique picture. You see how this woman looks a little bit strange. So she could be a fairy or an elf or something like this, or maybe a ghost or something of the sort, but really she seems to be a mechanical creature, a robot of sorts. I'm not quite sure if one can see this so well, but she seems to be made of metal. And metal, of course, means that we're wearing a suit of armor that protects us. We look like ourselves, but this is impenetrable. Yes, and so of course the result is we feel dead inside. So at some point we need to put down the suit of armor and allow for us to reconnect with the real world. But there is more to that, and that has to do with the context. Oh my god, this is so interesting. Sagittarius, this has to do with the context with these two cards here. The shame and embarrassment of not having acted in a certain way. This is where it becomes more clear, even. Artificial heart means that we acted in a way that was not true to our own heart. Or we were numbing our heart so much that it might as well have been made of metal, a mechanical thing. Maybe it has a pulse even, but it's not coming from its own energy, its own being. It's artificially created. And if you feel shame and embarrassment and maybe disappointment, perhaps even anger, because this is also a card of anger, Sagittarius, for not having acted according to your true self, and now you feel bad about this. Well, this is it. At some point you didn't follow your heart, and you see now that you should have. And the message here is, Sagittarius, please forgive yourself and please let this go. Please let the self-hatred go. the embarrassment. Let go of beating yourself up about possibly having been able to do better. If you had been able to do better, Sagittarius, you would have done. And if it was a situation of having the little devil and the little angel on each shoulder, and you're not quite sure which one to listen to, well, what if you made the wrong decision? Well, what if your inner voice said, oh no, you know exactly this is the wrong decision, and you did it anyway? It's a learning process. And this shows you now so much more clearly than if you had acted the right way, shall we call it, straight away. You know, I mean, now that you made the mistake, perhaps, whatever it may have been, you now can see so much with vengeance. You can see now so much more than would have been the case otherwise, how important it is to follow your heart and to feel yourself as a living, breathing human being with a pulse, with blood rushing through your system, with thoughts, with a heart, with a soul, with a personality, because this right now, she's beautiful, but it's not real life. So the artificial heart, the moment we are denying our true heart, that moment we're creating a life for us that is artificial and not according to our true heart's desire. Okay? So, letting go of it. Moving on, forgiving yourself, focus on doing better and healing and being happy and having a good time, okay? And now, last but not least, we have our fairy tale card. And here I believe Sagittarius is the answer. This is quite bright. I'm sorry, I see how I can do this so one can see this, because it's actually a very bright, sunny evening right now, and so it's the sunshine falling through the window. Maybe that's a nice, maybe it's a good sign, who knows. But you see here, the seductiveness of the music. You have the magical element of music bewitching people, often in legends and in fairy tales. So, who are you in this picture, Sagittarius? Did you seduce someone? And by the way, can I just say, this has nothing to do with children or adults. It might, hopefully it's not the case, but you see what I'm trying to say. This is all about energies, this is about symbolism. So this is just about innocence, following a person who knew very well what they were doing, and them effectively dancing after his pipe or his flute, as the saying goes. So who are you in this picture, Sagittarius? I mean, there are a lot to choose from, right? But that's not what I mean. Are you the one who was seducing someone in a situation? It does not necessarily need to be in a sexual way. Were you manipulative in a situation and you realize this now, and as much as it hurts to face this now, you realize that was actually me, I did that, and that's shadow work right there, Sagittarius. And as much as it hurts and as tough it is to face our own flaws, and the moment we look into our own abyss and we see what we're capable of, that's when we have the chance to decide that we want to do better, and that's when things can become better, and we and everyone else are so much happier for it. So the first thing that needs to go is the shame, because shame blocks us. Shame wants us to look down. Shame wants us to look away from what we see within ourselves. And shame is such a horrible feeling, because you see, embarrassment is a feeling that we feel about something we did, and shame is something that we may feel about something we believe we are. That's the difference. At least I read this somewhere. I found this quite interesting, that idea. If you are or were the person bewitching the children and leading them away, because your tune that you played for them was so beautiful or so convincing. Yes, it's hard to realize this, but it's time to forgive yourself. If you feel anger, perhaps even disgust, shame, embarrassment about having been the one that has been led on, that has been seduced, manipulated, that was weaker, that was less knowing, then of course forgive yourself. In both cases, forgive yourself, because now you know better. Now you know. And in both cases it's very, very hard to face this, but ultimately it means the same for both sides. It means releasing yourself from releasing yourself from the slavery of the wrong choices, because people who are manipulative, for instance, be it subconscious or consciously, they really do so because of fear in most cases, and fear of course makes us feel weak, so it's effectively an attempt to become stronger. So there you see there is a certain element where we can see even that process with compassion and empathy, because fear is a terrible feeling. Of course that way an awful lot of damage can be done, but in the moment you realize you can do better, but then you really need to be good to yourself, and don't put yourself down, and move on with a happy light heart and do better in future. And now, if this is about having been the one who followed, who was bewitched, maybe there was a person that was really seductive, really convincing, and maybe you see now that you were wrong, and only now you realize all the red flags that maybe were there at the start, or maybe there was just one little red flag, maybe one or two, over the span of a couple of years. You never gave it the importance, the weight that it really had. You are not to blame for this. People can be convincing, people can be manipulative, and to fall for something like that, Sagittarius, it's understandable to feel embarrassed about this in hindsight, to feel like you lost your dignity perhaps to a certain extent, to be perhaps even repelled by your emotions that you had back then. But this is not how it works. We always do as well as we can, usually, in any given situation. So you acted according to your best knowledge at the time. Now at this point you see things more clearly, and now you know how things really were, and okay, now we can't change the past anymore. Now we see where we could have made changes for things to turn out in a different way. But Sagittarius, please, again, don't beat yourself up. See this as a positive thing. This saying perhaps, if it's not love, it's a lesson. And even if this is not about a love story, Sagittarius, the amount of wisdom and knowledge and skill you've learned just from that one situation, that's invaluable. This is really very, very good. So this is about you building your confidence and strengthening yourself and strengthening your self-empathy and confidence after having been in a situation where you felt you acted against your true nature and you now feel bad about this. And Sagittarius, but symbolically speaking, right, imagine it like as if you're writing this newly gained knowledge into a book, and then you take this book and put it in your personal library. You put it on a shelf, and there it is, and you can move on with your happy life, wiser than before, stronger than before. Next time you're going to recognize much quicker, won't you, what you could do differently, and you'll see the warning signs much more quickly. And it's no good beating yourself up about this, and please move towards an attitude of seeing how much strength and strength it even needs to go through a situation like this in the first place, and how much wisdom and intelligence, Sagittarius, it needs to even come to the point where you realize what should have gone differently and better, because this can be quite difficult, especially when someone is convincing and seductive, right? So Sagittarius, be good to yourself, do something fun, do something enjoyable, let go of those parts of your self-image and see it as a good lesson and move forward with that new skill, because I mean, this is such a great skill to have, to be able to look back on something and be able to see what went wrong, so that in future then you can prevent this from happening. I mean, that's pretty much all we need. Okay, Sagittarius, as you can see, this is a new channel, so if any of this resonated with you, like and subscribe. I'm doing personal readings as well, so if you feel you would like some guidance from me and some advice, I'd be happy to do a personal reading for you. The email address is in the description. Sagittarius, thank you so much for spending this time with me, and be happy, be well, be safe, and I wish you a wonderful day.